We want to commend, first of all, that Governor Corbett for his cutting of spending and not raising taxes in his budget from last year and also this year. This was a good first step, but really only a first step. We need to do more, much, much more. And that's what this panel is about. There are serious threats to Pennsylvania's fiscal house. And unless we take action now, it's going to burn down. So we want to talk about what those threats are, but also what we can do to put out those fires and fireproof our economy. Today we have some fantastic speakers. We're first going to hear from State Senator John Eichelberger and Representative Steve Bloom. They'll be talking about the 4-alarm fire that is being sounded across Pennsylvania. Then we'll hear from Representative John Baer, who represents part of Lancaster County. And he will be talking about the challenges that are before us today in the House of Representatives and the opportunities for moving Pennsylvania forward. Then we'll hear from Simon Campbell, who is a school board member in the Pennsbury School District in Bucks County, and he's also the founder of Stop Teacher Strikes. I'm sure he will be dull and boring as always. Sarcasm if you haven't heard Simon. And then we will hear from Kim Schmittner. Kim is with the Leadership for Liberty and also founding a new group called the Pennsylvania School Board Coalition to raise up more school board members that stand for taxpayers rather than the tax eaters. So without taking up any more time, I'd like to bring up State Senator John Eichelberger and Representative Steve Bloom, and we will get the program started. Fill out your question cards and go ahead and bring them up, put them on the corner, and we'll get the Q&A going as well. So, Senator and Representative. Yes.
Good afternoon. I want to start by thanking Matt Briette and the Commonwealth Foundation. Steve Bloom and I have worked together with them on a project called the 4-Alarm Fire. We have a DVD that we're going to show this evening. You're going to get a private screening invitation. They're available, if you don't receive one another way, at the Commonwealth Foundation's table right outside the door here to this ballroom. And we have a special treat, a 4-alarm fireman who's fighting the battles in Harrisburg for the taxpayers of Pennsylvania. And this was modeled, I think, after Steve because he's a little pudgier than I am. I'm only kidding. Probably me. The Commonwealth Foundation and Representative Bloom and I had discussions about our lives as legislators at this time of the year. We're inundated by people that are concerned about their particular budget line item and whether it went up 1% or down 2% or something like that. And that's important to them, and it's certainly important to everybody in Pennsylvania because it's important enough to merit an item in the budget, and it's something that needs addressed. But we lose track of this broader perspective of the fiscal problems we face in this state. And we have a fiscal crisis that we're facing in this state. And you wouldn't know that if you pay attention to the news every day, because what you hear is about some particular area of the budget, whether it's social services or education or something like that, that's affected in some way by the budget. But the reality is that there are forces greater than that structurally in the budget, 4 areas that Steve's going to talk about that are coming down on us, crashing down on us as this fire continues to spread throughout our fiscal house in Harrisburg. So that's what the messages we're trying to get across is this global perspective that we hope you'll take a great deal of pay a lot of attention to and get back and educate the folks back home, because we're not going to win the battles fighting over each individual line. We have to look at the global picture, figure out that we have real problems, and then everything is put in a much better perspective. So Steve's going to talk to us a little bit more about some of the details of the 4 areas that are of particular concern.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Matt, for moderating our panel, and it's a great pleasure to be here at the PLC. My question for you is, over the last 40 years, do you feel that Pennsylvania government has gotten 151% better? I'm not seeing a lot of hands. I'm hearing some shouted no's. Well, in the last 40 years, Pennsylvania government spending has gone up by 151%. That has happened through Democratic administrations, Republican administrations, democratically controlled legislatures, Republican-controlled legislatures. It's a chronic problem we're facing, and it's only getting worse. And as Senator Eichelberger said, we're sounding the alarm. We're going to talk about school funding in different phases of this conference. We're not focusing on school funding in particular in this little segment because we're looking at 4 of the other areas in which Pennsylvania's fiscal house is catching on fire and the fire is getting more intense. And I'm going to take these and kind of take them from bad to worse. First of all, state government debt. If you look at the debt, what Pennsylvania owes to others, what we essentially as the taxpayers, the citizens, owe to others. Since 2002, just in the last 10 years, our general obligation debt in Pennsylvania has increased by 54%, from $6.8 billion to $10.3 billion. If you look at the full debt, state and local government debt in Pennsylvania, it's gotten to the point where we now owe $121 billion. That's $9,400 for every person. That's $38,000 for every Pennsylvania typical family of 4. Problem's only going from bad to worse. We've taken some measures to curtail the borrowing. We haven't stopped it yet, and it's just getting worse. And that component of the budget, that $1.1 billion that it now takes to service that debt, is only going to get bigger in each year coming forward. Looking at the next area, school employee and state employee pensions. We're looking at projections right now. The state contribution to the state school and state employee pensions that has to be made out of the current budget is $1.7 billion. But by 2016, 2017, just 5 years from now, it's going to be up to $6.1 billion. That's a 257% increase. Again, if we do nothing, not make it worse. So we're to a point where just the budget, just the funding of the state contribution to pensions alone is going to go from 4% of our state budget to 12% of the entire general fund budget of the state. The next area, correction spending. Since 1980, when we used to spend about $200 million a year to take care of our correction system, our prisons, we're now up to $2 billion and rising as the prison population just continues to rise and there's no end in sight. And then to the real gorilla in the room, Pennsylvania welfare spending. For the first time in history, we're to the point where we're spending more on welfare in Pennsylvania than we are on anything else, more than we spend on education or any other budget area. It's roughly 40% of our budget. And since, again, in just the last 10 years, since 2002, that welfare spending has risen by 52% from what it was in 2002, just those 10 short years, 52%. That was long before the recession hit that it began to climb at that rate. And it's grown 3 times faster than the rest of the budget since 2002. And that's without the news that Secretary Alexander broke this morning that if Obamacare is fully implemented, welfare spending alone is going to take up 60% of our Pennsylvania budget, go from 40 to 60% of the budget. So that's the alarm we're sounding. And again, we'll talk about solutions, but those are the 4 key alarms, and thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Stephen. Just to close, so the next time that somebody asks you about their particular budget line and they say, isn't this terrible, this has been cut, ask them if they understand this global perspective and they understand how bad things really are and how bad things are going to be in Pennsylvania as these costs continue to skyrocket all around us when people are worried about another couple $1,000s or a few $100,000 for something or other that there really isn't a core function of government. Again, the DVD tonight we're going to show is a private screening in the Governor's Ballroom, which is just by the lobby in the main part of the hotel. It's going to be after dinner. It's an 8.5-minute video, so if you have time to come over, we're going to have popcorn for you. And we're looking to, and we'll be there to answer some questions to give you a little bit more detail. And there's more detail. Once you see the graphs and things, on the DVD. If you're not very frightened when you leave that room, there's something wrong with you. You must be a liberal if you're not very frightened when you leave that room. So we'll look for you tonight. Thanks again for paying attention today.
Representative John Bear is leading an effort in the House of Representatives to change some of our labor laws. He has been the point person as well as a target in many regards. John is being a champion on issues related to taxpayer issues, and I've asked him to talk about some of the issues that are going down that can use your help even in the next couple of weeks. So, Representative Bear.
Good afternoon. It's really good to see all of you. I come here with a sense of optimism, actually, that we are only a handful of votes away from some really great things in Pennsylvania. And I say that because I think we're only a handful of votes away from right-to-work legislation. I think we're only a handful of votes away from some meaningful education reform. And I also think we're only a handful of votes away from pension reform. And really, I think it all starts in a matter of a week or two when we do a critical vote on prevailing wage. Thank you. And here's why I say it starts with prevailing wage. A month or so ago, the House Labor Committee sent out 6 labor reform bills, all dealing with prevailing wage, and sent it to the House floor. And just from historical context, that's pretty significant. We have not done that in a long, long time. And now with the 6 that we put out there, we're really focusing on 2. And we're focusing on 2 prevailing wage reforms that no one should be able to argue with. Common sense reforms. Some might say it's incremental. Some think we should go a little further. But we picked these because not even a union member or association could probably keep a straight face and say to the taxpayer, this is a bad thing, it's hurting the unions. And no, because it's about the taxpayers. And the first bill that we're looking at voting here is House Bill 1329, which is a bill by Representative Fred Keller. And all that does is increase the threshold for prevailing wage from $25,000 to $185,000. And have it adjusted for inflation. How could you be against that? This is for taxpayers. People always are saying, well, the government always has all these unfunded mandates on local governments, on school districts. We're cutting the funds to the municipalities and school districts. We don't have the money, neither do they. We need to free them up. And this is a small token effort to get this thing going. Because, I did some rough numbers the other day. I was looking at what a house cost in 1963, which is when this was set, what a car costs, eggs, milk. All those things have gone up over 800% since 1963. But yet, prevailing wage, we're still at $25,000. It's ridiculous, it's nonsensical, and I don't know how anyone can, in good faith, not vote for this bill. So we're hoping, and I'm feeling pretty confident, when we vote this on the floor in a very short amount of time, that we will get the votes to pass the first prevailing wage reform since 1963. And it needs to happen now. Now, let me tell you what's holding this thing up. And I did say that maybe unions, probably with a straight face, couldn't say this is a bad thing. Unfortunately, I do run into members that think this is a bad thing. In fact, I was sitting at the table listening to Grover Norquist, and I got an email from an unidentified individual saying, John, if you pass 1329, I'll be earning McDonald's wages. You put me on minimum wage. What a crock. I shot back and I said, not true, and you know it. Stop the lies. And that's what they are. They're lies. It's class welfare. It's trying to make everyone scared. But we all know the prevailing wage is the union rate. It's not the market rate, it's union rate, determined by collective bargaining. All we're saying is, let's get this in line with where the market rate is. And yesterday, we had a webinar that the Commonwealth Foundation and others were involved in, and we had a school district from York County said they want to bid a roofing job. When they put the bid out, the person that shot back with the bid did not realize it was prevailing wage and brought in a quote of about, I think, $85,000 or so. When they went back and said, oh, no, this is prevailing wage, it came back significantly higher, 50% higher. Same company, same people, same workers, same scope of work, but yet it came in 50% higher. We as Pennsylvanians, as Americans, cannot afford this fleecing of the taxpayers, and we up here in Harrisburg need to get it straight, put our big boy pants on, and stop being scared, and tell the union where to go. It needs to end. And let me tell you, they're scared. They are really scared. They're all banding together. Whether you're a PSCA, whether you're a construction trades, they're all banding together on all the issues. A few months ago, we tried to do a modest unemployment compensation reform. They fought and screamed, and we got a modest reform through. Back under Rendell, we tried to do pension reform. In fact, in the beginning of the pension debate, the unions came up and said to us, no way, no how, we ain't giving you nothing. By the end of the year, they were begging for House Bill 2497, which basically increased the retirement age, that re-amortized the pension obligations, and did many other things, and they asked for it by the year end. I think if you all, no matter where you are from the Commonwealth, reach out to your senators, reach out to your representatives and say, no more, we've had enough, we need you to stand up to these guys, this will get done. Because again, we're only a handful of votes short of getting this done. And the last point I want to make is when I talk to some of my colleagues that maybe are in areas that are more unionized or have a more vocal presence of some of those folks, they'll say to me, well, John, I'd like to do this. I'd really like to do this, but I'm not hearing from the other side. I'm not hearing from my school board officials. I'm not hearing from municipalities. And in fact, I'm not even hearing from some of the businesses, because I know on election day, I'll have 30 union workers at my poll, as well as my funds, and they'll put up and do what they need to do, but I'm not getting on the other side. Now, even though I think that's kind of a bogus excuse, that's what we're facing. So if we work collectively, again, in the construction trades, unions are only 15 to 20% of the workforce. That's small, but yet they have this much they're this powerful, and they can put the fear of God into people. Their time has come to an end. It needs to get readjusted. The pendulum needs to come back to the middle, and we got to make about the taxpayers and not the union party, and that's what we're trying to do. So I look forward to your questions, and I appreciate you having me here. Thank you.
Representative Baer has framed it up perfectly, because we get questions all the time. Why we have a Republican governor, Republican House, Republican Senate, are we not seeing the kinds of reforms that we're seeing in Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio? It's an excellent question. It's an excellent question, but you have to recognize that most of the time we're thinking in terms of Republican Party and Democrat Party. That's not where the balance of power lies. It's, as John said, it's between the Union Party and the Taxpayer Party. And today, the Union Party has its boot on the neck of the taxpayers. And until we remove it, and this is the first step that John was talking about, until it's removed, we will not see the types of reforms that other states have experienced. One of the biggest gorillas in the state capitol that crawls the Capitol with lobbyists is the PSEA, the Pennsylvania State Education Association. $100 million a year organization, and the next person that is going to speak has taken them on and has bloodied them plenty of times, and he's got some good words for you here. Simon Campbell.
Thank you, Matt, for the kind introduction. I have to say it's always a pleasure to be here, and I want to tell you something. It's interesting how I end up being here, because just a few years ago, the teachers union kicked all my kids out of school in my school district in Pennsbury, and today I became an American citizen, and I actually did something stupid called run for public office, the kind that doesn't pay you anything, school board. When I became a citizen, it was quite a big deal. January 2009, and there was supposed to be this non-voter, registration group in the room, and the guy gave me the form, and he's like, and don't forget, now you're a citizen, to register Democrat. And I'm like, I'm going to slap this guy. We're inside a ceremonial room, and he's telling me this stuff. But I thought, if I actually get in a brawl inside the ceremonial room, I'll never get invited to anywhere again. So I behaved myself. But I did want to talk about, our title of our panel is Right-Sizing State Government. And let's face it, you can't talk about that unless you're willing to talk about right-sizing the political power of public sector unions, because they are a beast. All they want is more money, more dues, more expenditures, and higher taxes. So I look at this in a very pragmatic way. First, you have to identify the problem, and then you have to identify the solution. Now, you may have seen some of the Commonwealth Foundation's reports. They talk about the Union Party versus the Taxpayer Party. He's so politically correct, Matt. I like to say it this way. There's two types of legislators in Harrisburg. They're not Democrats or Republicans. They're called normal people, like we have here, and union zombies, right? This is what we have. Now, I define a union zombie as someone who has a proverbial needle stuck into their vein that keeps their political career alive. It's marked union dues and union PAC contributions. And when you try to lobby or advocate with one of these people, all they, like if you said, what's your position on prevailing wage, they just grunt, look for the nearest union boss that feeds them the money, and say something stupid. So it's kind of a waste of time. To me, this whole solution with how to deal with the problem is you walk up to one of these people, yank the needle out the vein, cut the money off, and then say, now what's your position on right to work? Then they have two choices. They can either A, find a brain and say something stupid, or they can be removed. But once the money's gone, what have they got left to do? So when I thought about what I wanted to talk about today, this is the fastest workshop in history. The issue is, how do you cut off the artificial amount of money, because it's artificial, that is flowing into these veins? The way you do it is to understand current state law. I'm not talking about changing state law here. Current state law says that payroll deduction of union dues from union members' paychecks, payroll deduction of PAC campaign contributions through union members' paychecks, and compulsory union dues for non-union employees is all negotiable locally. What does that mean in the real world? That means that school board directors like me, county commissioners, even the state officials, the executive branch, all have the right in current law to say no. Or as I like to say it to the unions, collect your own flaming money. It has a certain ring to it, right? Now, this issue, to give you a case example of this, 2008, Bucks County's commissioners, remember what I said about it being negotiable locally, had all of these contract provisions up for renewal at a public meeting. This was when our lieutenant governor was Bucks County commissioner. So me and three friends found out about this. We drove up to this meeting. The employees were all there, the AFSCME employees. So we're kind of walking into the lion's den. And our whole point was to say you should vote the contracts down until all of this garbage is removed. Well, then Commissioner Corley said three words to me that always set me off. He used the expression, fair share fees. Now, any of you who have ever heard of the concept of forcing a non-union employee into paying dues to keep their job, and someone calls it fair share fees, to me that's like waving a red flag at a bull. So he said this. I got up to the microphone and I was in a bad mood. I just let it rip. I said, commissioners, how could you possibly entertain voting for this? Forcing your own employees who are non-union into paying dues to keep their jobs at the county. It's appalling. It's un-American. Now, anyone who knows our now Lieutenant Governor, well, he's a really nice guy, completely unflappable, which to someone like me is just a challenge. And he starts getting into it with me. You know, you're not phrasing it in a nice way. I said, nice. This is compulsory unionism on the table tonight. And don't you believe in individual liberty? He finally lost his cool. He basically said, you know what? I find it ironic that an Englishman is lecturing an American about liberty. And I thought, yes, here comes the front page of the newspaper. The next day, the Intelligentsia, front page, Sparks fly at contract approval, right? The day after, the editors pour in, Commissioner Corley, wrong to criticize Englishmen. So I'm like, nailed that one. But here's the point. To be fair, because I know he's floating around, he's going to tell me off in a minute. To be fair, he did actually vote no on these provisions, but what happened was the Rhino teamed up with the Democrat to push it through. But because he did actually vote against them, I was like, well, why'd you argue with me then? Several months later, we kind of kissed and made up, because that's what you do, isn't it, in politics? And this was around the time when I was running for school board. And Commissioner Corley, because we kissed and made up, said, well, if you like, Simon, I'll offer my personal volunteer time to help you. Now, this was when I was running for school board, dealing with rather a lot of union money coming against me, images of my head transposed onto all kinds of things and campaign flyers mailed out. And I said, well, we haven't got enough money for postage, so we're delivering the flyers door to door. He said, well, I'll help. I said, well, here's how we do it. One of us drives, the other one jumps in and out the car to deliver the flyers. I'm driving, you jump in and out. So Jim's jumping in and out the car delivering the flyers, right? I'm kind of in the front of the car cranking out AC/DC on the stereo. And I'm looking at my watch and I'm thinking to myself, come on, Jim, faster. We've got a lot to do. You can pay for your sins and don't argue with me about liberty again. I should tell this story. You know what's funny? I read this media story about a year ago. Our lieutenant governor saying how, he's a right to work advocate these days and how it's been a journey for him. And I'm thinking, yes, a journey in and out my car 250 times. I'm going to get in trouble with the Republican establishment now, aren't I? Oh, well, my reason for being. But here's the point. I don't really care. I'm like, don't invite me to speak if you don't want me to offend someone. But here's the point. All of this stuff is negotiable. School boards, counties, but also at the state level, the executive branch. Anyone remember last year the executive branch signed and agreed all of these union contracts with the state unions, AFSCME and the others? Guess what's in it? Compulsory union dues for non-members. And here's the thing. Guess how many non-union state employees we have? Because I've done the right to know request. Over 20,000. Think about this. 20,000 individuals who've all rejected the union being forced to pay union dues, because I will not say fair share, as a condition of their employment. 20,000. Not because the law requires it, because the executive branch, headed by the governor, has agreed to it. That's why. Guess what else is in these state union contracts? If you're non-union, you'll have your name, your address, and your social security number shipped off to union officials by the executive branch. It is in the contract. Guess what else? Payroll deduction of union dues, the political money, because that's what it is, the money that feeds the people, the zombies, remember, collected by the government. Guess what else is in the contract? Payroll deduction of PAC contributions, campaign contributions, election influencing money agreed to by the executive branch and AFSCME. Now, here comes some more political incorrectness. If you're an elected official, I don't care whether your name's Tom Corbett or Donald Duck, if you sit down, either yourself or your people, with union officials and agree that the public sector unions have a right to use governmental resources to collect campaign contributions, then you, the elected official, and you, the union official, should both go to jail. Now, I'm sure there are lawyers out there and other people that will say, well, it's perfectly legal, Simon, it's allowed. In that case, fine. I want Tom Corbett leaping in and out of my car to pay for his sins, only next time I'll be playing ABBA on the stereo. I love the look on your faces. You're like, did he just say the governor should go to jail or be forced to listen to ABBA? Yes, listen. All of this, I consider it completely corrupt to collect political money on the part of these unions that then get fed into Harrisburg to oppose all this legislation. When you're an enabler and a facilitator, you're going to get outed at a conference by me today. So, I'm going to go back to how you fix the problem, given that we have a slight lack of leadership in the governor's mansion. You go back to the local level, school board directors like me, county commissioners all have the right to say no, right? Or as I like to remember what I call it, collect your own flaming money. The way to deal with this is to think of it as to think of the 500 school boards, the 67 county governments as being like the colonies, right? Think of the governor's mansion as being like the palace. Here's what has to happen on an annual or twice-a-year basis. The Chief of Staff gives a report that goes like this. Your Royal Majesty, there's trouble brewing in the colonies. The Americans have seized control of 15 school boards and 2 counties, and they're threatening to take over 22 more. They're saying, Your Majesty, that nobody should be forced in a free nation to pay union dues when they're not a union member, Your Majesty. They're saying that it is corrupt for their local governments to use taxpayer resources to collect campaign contributions and political union dues, and they're taking a stand on it, Your Majesty. Then His Majesty can say, you mean all the stuff that I just approved, and they're going to contrast this at the Pennsylvania Leadership Conference? Yes, I think that's Mr. Campbell's point. Because, and then the report can continue. One other thing, Your Majesty, you know those 20,000 non-union employees at the state level? 20,000 individual American citizens that have a God-given right to liberty? You mean the ones we forced into paying union dues? Yes, they're the ones. The Americans have organized them all. They're all in a big, huge protest outside the governor's mansion, picket signs that read, "Why are you forcing me to pay union dues, Tom?" Oh dear, I'm in trouble with the establishment again, aren't I? But here's the point. It is completely unacceptable that any private organization, which is what public sector unions are, have a special privileged right to use governmental resources to collect campaign contributions, political union dues, which corrupts the entire process in the State House and the State Senate. No other organizations have these rights. I'm just one school board director, one vote, right? I don't agree to these contracts, period. I don't care what the unions do. But you know why elected officials agree to this stuff when they don't? They use two words, you know, even if they don't verbalize them. Labor peace. Labor peace. I hate these words. 20,000 individual citizens are having their liberty rights violated in the name of labor peace. It's a good thing George Washington wasn't alive today, because it wasn't labor peace on his mind when he was rowing across the Delaware. Now, let me just say, my dream in life is to get thrown out of a conference like this. Just so someone can say, "What happened to the Englishman?" Oh, he was standing too American. We had to kick him out. But get out there into the colonies, school boards, counties, the state level, cut off the union dues, stop feeding the people in Harrisburg, and we'll see some real change. Thank you.
I told you he'd be putting you to sleep. Well, somebody who is doing that at the local level, trying to make a difference, because the gentlemen to my right here are trying to make a difference in Harrisburg. But what goes on in Harrisburg has to be supported at home, and it is ground up and top down. Policy change. Kim Schmittner is working on things in the Lehigh Valley and wants to share with you how you can become more active in what they're doing to make a difference in their community, and what hopefully you will do as well when you go back home. Kim?
Of course I have to follow Simon. That's going to be a tough act to follow. As Matt mentioned, I am Kim Schmittner, and I am Vice Chair with Leadership for Liberty. We are out of the Lehigh Valley. We are a group that is very focused on local issues. Our mission is to analyze public policies and government actions, educate the public about government operations, especially at the local level, and empower the citizenry to take action. And as Matt said, it's very important to work at the Harrisburg level down, but without the support from the ground and the grassroots up, it's very difficult to institute change. As Simon was talking about, and Matt also, we have a Republican governor, Republican House, and a Republican Senate, but yet these changes are we're not seeing them. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is because the citizenry really doesn't understand how it affects them. We all know that things are messed up at the national level and even at the Harrisburg level. And a lot of citizens think that it's too separated from them, and it really doesn't affect them. I'm sure you've seen the poll where they've asked, hey, how is Congress doing? And everybody gives Congress a very bad rating, and they shouldn't be reelected. But then when they ask about their specific congressman, he's great, I'll reelect him. Everybody at the local level has a mentality, it isn't affecting me, it's not in my district, it's somebody else's district that's bad. And that's the idea that we really need to change at the local level. We need to make the public aware and understand how things affect them. We learned today that the state and local debt is $9,400 for every citizen of Pennsylvania. How many of your neighbors know that? At the national level, every man, woman, and child's portion of the national debt is $49,500. So between the national, state, and local level, each one of us in this room, every one of our children, grandchildren, parents, our share of the debt for the reckless spending of our government is $60,000. How many people have $60,000 lying around that they can hand over to government to pay for that debt? What would they do with that $60,000? Would they go on vacation? Could they put their children through college? These are the types of issues that we can hit home with the citizens. And I have found that, not party, because again, we're hearing it's both Democrats and Republicans, but when you make people understand how it is affecting them, especially financially in this very tough economic time, it really hits home and it shows it affects them. So that's what we focus on at Leadership for Liberty, is really taking those national issues and local issues and making people at home understand how it affects them directly. Now, how do you get people involved? We have Simon, who's elected to the school board, and we have some school boards around the state that have a majority of people that are like-minded with Simon, but a lot of places we don't. So in those districts, what we need to do is we need to activate the citizenry to attend their school board meetings. One thing that Simon recently did is he passed a resolution for no teacher strikes. And wouldn't that's just one district in the state. Could you imagine of the 500 school districts across the state, if we could get just 10% of those school districts all to pass that same resolution, or a resolution on prevailing wage, or a resolution on collecting union dues. Can you imagine what that would do to Harrisburg? Because it would gain, first of all, public attention, because the media would grab onto that if 50 districts across the state all did the same thing. And it would also force the hand of the legislature to do something, because as we all know, politicians like to do something about a crisis. And we need to create that crisis. So what Leadership for Liberty decided to do is we have launched about 2 months ago. We'll officially launch it at our breakfast next Saturday. But we are launching the Pennsylvania School Board Coalition. What we're hearing a lot from newly elected school board directors and also citizens is they don't know when they get elected, what do? They go to the PSBA, the Pennsylvania School Board Association, and they're told, well, you're new. Just for the next 6 months, just don't say anything. Just sit and learn. And they're also told, well, pretty much the superintendent, they really run the show. Just kind of do what they tell you to do. Well, that's the way the game has been played. And we can't afford to play that game any longer by their rules. We need to change the rules of how the game is played. And so the Pennsylvania School Board Coalition, excuse me, I'm getting over the plague, so my voice is going. But what we want to do is we want to coordinate those school districts, not only school board directors, but citizens that are active in their communities, in their school districts, to communicate, thank you, communicate. So we can get 50 school districts across the state to sign on resolutions simultaneously. When you have one district that does it, it's really easy for the union to come down on that one district. But if you have 50 or 100 districts across the state, it's going to be real hard for them to spread out their resources and put out the fires in all these places. So that's really what the Pennsylvania School Board Coalition is looking to do. Offer alternate training to change the rules of the game so they understand what they can do when they get elected to school board, or even for citizens, what they can do to hold their school boards accountable. I totally went off my notes, so I'm going to just wing it. But just to give you some examples of some successes that we've already seen. We've had people attending the Allentown City Council meeting, where recently there was a grant that was supposed to be rubber stamped and sent through. But the new council members, I'm sorry, this is, it was in Allentown. They said, well, wait a minute, we're not sure whether we want to take this grant or not. We need to investigate that. Well, suddenly, there were a couple establishment folks in the room that turned white. And the reason they turned white is it turns out that some of this money had already been spent. Nobody approved it. What's the point of having commissioners if the bureaucrats are making these decisions already before the grant is even approved? So we're working on exposing that. In Northwestern School District, we had a newly elected school board who was very, very excited, and they wanted to institute positive change in their district. And they started talking directly with school district employees without first running it by the superintendent. Well, the superintendent got a little upset about that. And she called a meeting to teach them the proper chain of command. Well, there was an article that was posted in the Morning Call, and Leadership for Liberty and the PSBC, our group, jumped on it. We actually had one of our board members write a blog about it. And basically she said, this is wrong. The taxpayers elect the school board directors who then hire the superintendent. That's the chain of command. That blog went viral in the Northwestern School District, and it made a lot of people mad. And that superintendent got a lot of phone calls, and she was schooled on what really was the proper chain of command, and suddenly now her tune has changed a little bit. So that's another success. We have another newly elected school board director in the East Penn School District who is looking at the school district's budget, and she's drilling into the detailed budget. And of course, the PSBA will tell you, oh, well, don't count the tomatoes in the kitchen. Well, if those tomatoes cost $1,000 each, and you're buying 10,000 of them, you better start counting the tomatoes. And that's exactly what she's doing. She's been told that these details don't exist, which has since found not to be true. And now she's been promised to be given those records, but it's been 2 weeks and she still doesn't have them. But she's still pushing. And this is the key. She's drilling into the budget. She's being told in 20 years nobody's ever looked at this. And she answered, well, maybe that's the problem. So she is a very brave young lady, and she's making change in East Penn. Which brings me to the first initiative that Pennsylvania School Board Coalition is going to be undertaking. We're actually putting together a packet on how best to understand your school district's budget, what account numbers to ask for, and that you could drill into. Because I'm sure when you hear every year, we have to raise your taxes. Because if we don't raise your taxes, we have to eliminate teachers or eliminate girls' soccer or eliminate art and band. And of course, the public gets in an uproar. Well, we could actually show you where to look in the budget that you can cut wasteful spending without affecting those programs or classroom sizes. Who can argue with that? If you're going to cut the waste and not raise taxes and maybe even get a tax cut, who can argue with that? So we're putting together alternate budgets. And finally, another success story that shows you how much work that we have to do. We have another newly elected school board director in the Saucon Valley School District. And he just recently went to the PSBA meeting, and there were several legislators in the room, and they were talking about mandate relief, which is a valid concern. And it ended, and it was over, and he raised his hand and he said, well, I'm sorry, there's a 500-pound gorilla in the room, and it's called PSERS. And we haven't talked about that today. And he gave him some numbers, some facts. And he said he got a dumbfounded blank look from the people that were sitting on the panel. They don't know what to do. And so that shows you that this has to start at the local level, that it comes from the top down and the bottom up. Without the support of grassroots and the citizens, the people in Harrisburg are not going to be able to do the change that needs to be done. Because, again, they don't hear from us. We heard that today. They don't hear from citizens because, A, they don't know what the real problem is, they don't see how it affects them, and they don't understand. So our job is the 3 C's: competence, credibility, and confidence. And through Leadership for Liberty and Pennsylvania School Board Coalition, that's what we're giving to people. And we're hoping to spread this further than the Lehigh Valley. We do have a table in the exhibit hall, so if you are interested in more information, please visit us at our table. Thank you very much.
Any questions, bring those cards up, just set them up here. Simon will pass them up as he's answering my first question here. Wasn't Pat Toomey's speech fantastic? I mean, right to the principles. One thing that Pat said that we're learning at Commonwealth Foundation extensively, or trying to, is that, we love data as conservatives, right? We think that, hey, the numbers are over here. Policy should be over there as well. What we don't do very well on is messaging and talking about these issues that real people understand. That's when I go to my wife to ask, what do you think about this? She's a better gauge of real people. Simon is good at chastising us on looking at the numbers and that this is really about liberty. Simon, talk about how it is that has worked for you, particularly in your school district. I think it's on automatically.
Okay.
In your school district, that it's not the numbers that are winning the arguments for you, but it's freedom.
Well, we're talking about what frustrates me about the right to work issue is how our side argues it. You see the think tanks and other groups and business groups talk about, the economic benefits of right to work. Let me explain something. That's inside baseball. It really is, okay? If I say to my neighbor, George, George, do you think Pennsylvania would economically benefit being right to work? He wouldn't change the TV channel. Yeah. If I said, do you think all the teachers in Pennsylvania, including the ones that are non-union, should be forced to pay union dues to keep their jobs? He'd be like, what? So here's the point on compulsory unionism. Our side has to stop being nice about it. We're way too nice about it. What we need to be doing is remembering, you've got in the Declaration of Independence a God-given right to liberty. That's one argument. And on the other, here's some economic statistics. How can you possibly be talking about that given that? When George Washington was going across the Delaware, he wasn't saying, King, freedom's a good idea and I've got a bunch of statistics to prove it. No. He was like, freedom's a good idea and I've got a gun to prove it. So the point is, on compulsory unionism, forget the numbers. Just talk about freedom of association and the Constitution. It's enough.
Let me kind of kick that over to here, because in the sense of, what Simon is arguing, but at the same time, what is it that legislators need to hear and what convinces them? I'll throw it to all three of you or whomever wants to jump on it.
One of the things, Matt, is a lot of times I don't think it's a combination. People don't have the right facts and statistics, and so when they do contact us, it's not always on the issues that are probably most important. When you look at the state budget context, the thing I hear most about from my constituents is we got to cut the size of the legislature. The legislature is too expensive, which it absolutely is. It's the second most expensive legislature in the country. It's too big. It's too expensive. We spend about $260 million a year on it, but that's just less than 1% of the budget. It's not the thing driving the budget crisis. So yeah, I get on every bill to try to reduce the size and scope of the legislature, and that's something important to me, and I've turned down benefits and so forth. But the point is, we have to get the people calling us in anger like they do about the legislature about public welfare spending, and calling us in anger about the debt that we're taking on as a state. The things that are really driving the bigger part of the budget, the other 60 or 70% of the budget, not so much the tiny less than 1% pieces that people seem to get riled up about. We somehow got to get that anger channeled where the money is.
And I just want to add to that, I think it's the individual contacts. So as Representative Bloom just mentioned, the phone calls. Well, it's not just the phone calls, it's the emails, it's the visits to the office. I can assure you when there's an education reform bill up, like that, the PSCA is sending thousands of emails out to individual reps. When we talk about prevailing wage bill, that helps, I'd say, even more people, everyone in the Commonwealth with an unfunded mandate. It goes relatively silent. We're not hearing from the school board folks. We're not hearing from the municipalities or the counties. Now, that's changing some, but in a very unscientific method, a representative or senator tends to sometimes have a reaction to volumes of calls, emails, and visits. That gets their attention and at least focuses them on the issue. And I think on some of these good reform issues, we need that same kind of feedback from the constituents of the Commonwealth.
Representative Baer, somebody asked, what are the bills that are going to be considered so that as they reach out to their elected officials, that they're talking about specific bills?
So for labor, the one I mentioned, House Bill 1329, that's the prevailing wage reform bill. That will be first. And the other one, which I neglected to mention when I was talking, was House Bill 1685. That's my bill. And all that one does is create standard job classifications statewide. So electrician is transparent and statewide, what electrician or a plumber is, that'd be statewide and everyone knows what it is. Right now it's not. You have to guess what electrician or a plumber or a carpenter or what a common laborer does by region. It's a guessing game, and then the unions use it as a whipping tool to debar open shops. So again, how can you argue that? But anyway, they're fighting it. Those are two.
All right, lots for Simon. One is, when is he going to run for governor? But Simon, some serious ones. When, and maybe that is serious. Are we announcing that here?
I've actually read the Constitution. I'm not quite eligible yet.
What things have you been able to accomplish there in your school district? Are you still short of a majority to say the school district will no longer collect union dues? We will not have agency shop. Where is that at?
What have we accomplished? We've accomplished actually getting elected when like $100,000 comes against you for a volunteer position. I mean, it's quite something, our school district, in terms of the elections. We now have a governing majority on my school board effective last November. And we're the only school district, to my knowledge, that has ever even proposed in a negotiation to cut off payroll deduction of dues and to eliminate maintenance of membership and to eliminate, the compulsory union dues provision. We're the only ones that have proposed it. Now, the union have kind of freaked out. But when you articulate these issues to the public and you get them out, as Kim was saying before, people understand them in simple terms. When I say to an everyday person, should a non-union teacher be forced to pay union dues and have the money forcibly deducted at source from their paycheck? They're like, what? What? And I'm like, yeah, state law allows it. I don't agree with it. That gets people riled up. The dues deduction, here's one thing I did to rile people up, get an image of the check that the school district cuts to send to the union. So it says payable from school district, payable to teachers union. Show that check to people around town and they go, what? The school district's writing checks to the teachers union? I'm like, yeah, that's how they feed all the politicians in Harrisburg and DC. But people go mad. So just getting these issues out there. So we're putting these proposals across the table. The union don't like it, and I don't care. And more people should be doing it.
Well, I think our time is up. We have a ton of questions, so I apologize that we weren't able to get through them. But how many of you want to go to a Pennsbury School Board meeting now? Well, thank you for your attention. Thank my panelists for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the